Well, thank you for joining us today. And this is a fascinating story for several reasons. Partly because the fashion industry is one of those areas which, a bit like oat milk, is ripe for repositioning and is critical to the battles on climate change. But also behind the story of the initial or the specific product that you're involved with, Syre, is a story about something which you don't call a holding company, a platform that has developed a really unique approach to how you actually grow up and incubate new companies operating in green tech. And essentially, as I understand it, the Vargas group is raising funds from partners by working around the offtake system. It's quite a different model. Can you tell us briefly what exactly the secret sauce is with your group in terms of offtakes, and why it's so significant and why so few other people have done that yet?
I think it's partly because this is something that has evolved kind of in an organic way. Because when Northvolt, which is, I guess, the first company that was co-founded by Vargas, but it also has a founder in terms of Peter Carlson, who is an ex-Tesla executive. When we started working with Northvolt, which for me was about 7.5 years ago, that was the first 2 years we were being heavily questioned and criticized, because no one really believed that batteries was an industry that should exist in Europe. Green batteries in particular was something that was very questioned, because who cared about anything else but the actual performance of a battery? But after about 2 years, we did a very big round together with, led by Volkswagen and Goldman Sachs together, of $1 billion. And that was kind of a big turning point, both for the company and I actually think for the Swedish and to some extent European climate tech scene altogether. But those 2 first years was a lot about finding the model. When you have these grand ideas where you need a lot of money for a startup, when you don't actually have a product to show anyone, how do you finance such a thing? And after two years of, we ran down a few rabbit holes and kind of up again and trying to find a new solution, we in the end found something that worked. And it was the customers, the reason we believed in this was that the customers clearly said, we want you to succeed, we need this product. And when you have customer demand, that's normally a pretty good prerequisite for building a company. But the customers couldn't stand for all the capital themselves, and again, we didn't have a product. But in the end, we found a financing model where we could bring on debt by our customers signing binding purchasing commitments, offtakes, and also by finding some bold climate investors as well who were prepared to back us in an early stage. And once that had been done, and again, I've been working with Northvolt for 7.5 years, it took us a while to also see that this is actually something that you can do again.
Right.
And then every case is a bit unique, but it's pretty much a bit of a blueprint model for how you can build companies.
So basically the central secret sauce for your group, in a sense, is instead of just going to venture capital or friends and family or trying to get a bank to back you, to back a brilliant small idea and make it big, you're essentially saying to people, we have the proven demand for our brilliant idea, we're going to get them to put orders up front, guarantee that, and that will then be used to essentially securitize or back financing going forward. So you did that with batteries a few years ago, and you've since gone on to try and replicate that in a host of other fields as well, haven't you, like a green steel mill?
Yes, so a few years ago, I think that was early 2021, H2 Green Steel was launched. And that was still then a project that was worked on obviously some time before that, because a bunch of time and effort goes into validating these cases, validating the economics, the unit economics that you can get out of this, the customer demand. But I would also say that one thing that we do, because when you say Vargas Holding, it sounds like this huge company. It's actually one guy full-time, me part-time, and then one more guy part-time.
Okay, that's called officially lean.
Yeah. So, and a couple of support staff. But I would call it, that's why I call it more of a platform, because we work with partnerships from day one. Like with Syre that we'll talk more about, H&M was kind of the key partner from day one. In Northvolt, Volkswagen Group and BMW, I should say, have been some of the really key partners in making sure this happened. And if we're, whatever, two people or something, and we incubate all these companies, it's clear that we work with not only great industrial partners, but also great people, finding the people who actually know the specific industry, have a good track record, and then together we do this.
Right. So you create this innovative model, this offtakes model. You do it first for Northvolt, and then you have a Green Steel plant. You then go into, along the way, heat pump business. That all sounds very logical. You've now, though, jumped into fashion, which isn't normally where steel mill operators go next.
No.
So tell us about the latest venture you've got, which is Syre, which is trying to go into the world of fashion. How did this one come up, and what exactly do you do, and where did that giant idea come from?
Well, Sweden is a fairly small place, so we tend to kind of know each other. So I know a couple of senior guys at H&M from other, some angel investing and so on that I do. So they asked me if I wanted to come up for lunch, and this is now 2.5 years ago. And during that lunch, they were explaining their huge sustainability issue. And they were saying that they've been investing in multiple startups for a number of years, but they see that none of these startups are actually scaling so that they, to a meaningful extent, can solve the huge sustainability challenge for H&M. And they basically wanted to pick my brain on, given Northvolt, given H2 Green Steel in this thing, the model that we use. They were saying, so what do we need to make sure that the textile industry does? Well, coming home from that lunch, I kind of couldn't let go of the idea that there is obviously something here. I've been working a lot on the consumer end of fashion apparel before, so I know how big this challenge is. So I couldn't really let go of that one, so went back, discussed it with the Vargas guys, and we agreed that there could be an opportunity here, and then set out to basically try to investigate, is there a case for this kind of scale up in the textile industry as well? And very proud, of course, to say, 2.5 years later, a bunch of twists and turns and dead ends and periods where I didn't think this would become anything. But then now, 2.5 years in, yes, we have our offtake contract with H&M. We have some brilliant partners, of which Giant Ventures is one. We got some great investors in our latest round.
And your giant idea here really was about the idea of trying to recycle nylon, is that right? Or
polyester.
Polyester,
yes.
Sorry. I'm not an organic chemist, or not a chemist. So tell us where the idea came from and where the technology came from for recycling polyester. I mean, was this Swedish, or where did you find it?
No, it was not. Well, we started off by basically saying, how do we, with one business idea, solve this industry's challenge to the greatest extent we can? Where is the biggest problem? So took in McKinsey to help us also to look at kind of, if you look at the textile industry and its footprint, where is it? Where does it sit? Because the textile industry in total represents up to 10% of global CO2 emissions. So it's a huge CO2 emitter, but there are also other problems with some of the fibers. But pretty rapidly in the end, and we wanted to have a scalable idea, because so yeah, to make a real dent, you need it to be scalable. You want to build something that's really big. So pretty quickly, we actually narrowed down on polyester, because polyester is a bit over 50% of global textile fibers. And it's by far the biggest CO2 emitter if you look at the textile industry and all its components. And there are also multiple technologies out there. There are numerous startups in this industry, in that sector. So they're very ready to scale, but none of them have actually scaled yet. So we thought we found an area with a huge footprint and also technologies ready to scale. But we did need one of those technologies. So the next step was then to go out and scout for that technology. And that's when you realize that I was like, okay, where's my team? And there was no team. So I went out in the world.
What did you do? Go to trade fairs or go to universities or go and knock on the door of random scientists?
A bit of everything, actually. So it was it took us about a year. And again, during some periods, I thought this is not going to become anything. But the H&M network was extremely valuable here, because being very sustainability focused, they were in pretty good control of which technologies exist out there. They had even invested in some. And when H&M comes and knocks on the door globally, no one in this field closes a door. So they were a great door opener. So they managed to open all the doors so that I managed to actually get a seat at the table and sit down and discuss. Not all entrepreneurs saw the value of scaling, and see that is a completely, in my opinion, different skill set versus actually coming up with a technology. These are often polymer scientists. They don't know their technology extremely well, but scaling a business is a completely different skill set.
Absolutely.
But in the end, after a few kind of twists and turns and doors slammed in my face and went through all of that, we managed to find a technology in the US, based in North Carolina, a company named Premier that is now fully owned by Syre. And two scientists who had realized that their core skill was not scaling a business and that they needed us and we needed them. So we entered that partnership that was early last year. And with that technology then straight away started the work with what we call our blueprint factory that will be done this autumn. So that will be up and running. So we'll be producing recycled polyester at the end of the year.
So you've been shuttling between Stockholm and Raleigh, I would imagine, which is probably not a very easy flight. But I'm curious, so you've got the scientists, you've got the technology, you've got the funding from H&M and other partners. You've also got it from Volvo, who wants this for their seats, don't they, in their cars? They need polyester seats in a way. And TPG Rise's Green Fund. So what happens now? You're going to launch at the end of the year. You're hoping to scale up. Do you think this is a model that really is a future for other green tech sectors? I mean, because as you say, the big problem for all of green tech at the moment is scalability.
I certainly do think this is the thing, and I often say that the world, it's great with new technology, and the world needs that too, but there are actually so many technologies out there that are existing and ready to scale, but they do need to scale. They often get stuck at the level of a team or a scientist who doesn't have the right skill set. And I think that's...
I know, I sit in the university. Brilliant ideas all over the place, but that's sort of the hustle and the business planning, all that it's a tough.
But I think that's also one unique thing of what we've done in Northvolt, in H2 Green Steel, and now in Syre. We bring in really experienced senior business people. H2 Green Steel's CEO used to be the CEO of Scania, a big trucking company. But because you've run a big company doesn't mean you're not entrepreneurial. It doesn't mean that you don't have a drive to enable sustainability in your industry, rather the opposite. And here we actually combine the big ideas that actually need the experienced but also still curious people. Right. And that's where the magic happens, I think.
And do you think this model can be applied to any business sector? And I've got one more question after that.
Short answer is yes, more or less. And now when I have those glasses, I normally tell people I feel like I live in a little bubble where everything is possible and we kind of aim high and aim for the stars, and I guess semi-happy if we end up on the moon. But when you have those glasses on, you see numerous opportunities. If I could clone myself, maybe that doesn't sound very humble, but I see so many opportunities that I would spend time on thinking about anyway, and maybe not all of them would qualify, but several of them would.
Well, I'm sure there's a geek in Cambridge or Raleigh who's working on cloning technology, so it may not be so long. But more seriously, though, what I find fascinating about this is that culturally, this is quite a different vision of entrepreneurship from the one that you have in Silicon Valley. I mean, I can't imagine Elon Musk working in this way. Do you think this is providing an alternative model to Silicon Valley, an alternative way of imagining entrepreneurship? And how do you persuade your CEOs, most of whom have been reared on the cult of Elon Musk and that vision of entrepreneurship, which is very owner-centric? How do you persuade your CEOs to actually come on board and be the anti-Elon?
I'll come back to the Elon Musk thing, because I think this is very much inspired by Elon Musk, actually, this way of building companies. Given that Peter Carlson, the Northvolt CEO, used to work for Elon Musk, that was his last job before he founded Northvolt. So very Elon Musk inspired. But I think, to me, the traditional way of thinking what is an entrepreneur, if you actually look into the different pieces of what being an entrepreneur is, we definitely offer co-ownership to the CEOs. Obviously, you want the team to have skin in the game. In Northvolt, actually, we offer everyone co-ownership, and now we're 7,000 people, so a heap of that. So, but then. So co-ownership is there. And what is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur, actually, in many startups, is not the person who comes up with the idea originally. An idea is often iterated so many times, so it's pretty unclear by the time it becomes a company. It's pretty unclear whose idea it was. But the entrepreneur is the person who makes something out of that idea. So we take in CEOs who are super entrepreneurial as people, but who are prepared to take an idea that's kind of well developed and a strong business case, often with maybe customer contracts or discussions ongoing. And they see that this could become something if you build a great team around it. So it's entrepreneurial spirit in everyone that we take on board, but they are experienced people. So I think maybe this is a broader definition of being an entrepreneur, but definitely fits within, I think, the Elon Musk school of this.
Have you ever contacted Elon Musk, asked him to come and work for one of your companies?
No, I haven't. I suspect he wouldn't. But again, on this kind of role of being a role model and everything, I think without Elon Musk, we would not have a Northvolt, and without a Northvolt, we would not have H2 Green Steel or Syre. So this is a contagious thing, entrepreneurship actually, and bold visions that actually inspires courage and inspires believing that you can achieve something. I would not have said 20 years ago that I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to co-found this company that aims to change a whole industry. But after kind of living in that bubble for a number of years, it feels both doable and extremely important.
So your story is not just about batteries and not just about textiles, but it's also about the transfer of ideas and the transfer of the systems to enable those ideas to flourish. Well, thank you. It's been absolutely fascinating listening to you. Very best of luck when you launch later this year. My last thought is maybe you should send Elon Musk a recycled polyester suit. Because it can only improve his fashion sense.
That's a very good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.